Welcome to the Motion Church podcast, your weekly dose of teaching, faith, and inspiration. Every Sunday, we delve into the Bible to uncover its relevance for our lives today. Whether you're on the train, cooking, or just relaxing at home, grab your Bible, your coffee, or whatever you need, and let's explore the depths of living life with God together.
In Matthew 11, verse 28 to 30, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Thank you very much, everyone. That's right. We're done. So everyone that was tired, you got the message. You're feeling a lot better. You're feeling rejuvenated now that I gave you this amazing scripture. And now we can take it home and just be revitalized from it, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. But that is where we're going to get to. That is what we're going to get to this morning. Today I'm going to be talking about filling the void. Filling the void. I started by asking who's feeling a little bit tired, who's feeling a little bit worn down. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today, because a short while ago, a couple of weeks ago, in fact, I was feeling very worn out, very tired. Way more tired than I've felt in a very long time. And everyone goes through these dips. We're not robots, right? We don't work like this. Some people do, and sometimes I envy them, but work like at a consistent high level, right? Most of us work a little bit like this. Some of us work a little bit like this, like big ups and downs, right? And generally mine are quite steady. But I also go through these phases where things are amazing and then things are a little bit less amazing. Feel a little bit more tired. It's more difficult to get things done. It's more difficult to concentrate, to get yourself motivated. And I went through this period a couple of weeks ago where I was really struggling. I couldn't get myself motivated to work. I would get up in the morning. My concentration levels were so short. I gave myself tasks like send email. And while I'm busy sending the email, my concentration would just go somewhere else. And 20 minutes later, I'm back like, send email. And then send the email, actually. I struggled so much, I booked some sick leave as well in that time. And it was the first time in my life that I booked sick leave while I wasn't physically feeling sick. And that for me was already like what is going on? I had no motivation. I didn't know what I was working for. I didn't know what I was working towards. To be honest, the church was a light point in my life at that point. I've never felt that down. And I didn't really know what to do with it. And in my team of people that I work with, I've got a couple of people that are suffering from burnout at the moment. Now, that's a word in the IT industry that we use a lot because it's IT and we work with lives, right? This is life-changing stuff that we do in IT. So it's normal that you're going to have lots of burnout in IT, right? It's normal that you're going to have people that are overworked, overstressed because life and death, right? Now, unfortunately, most of the time it's not, but it is true that in the IT industry, burnout is a very severe problem. And I had a couple of people in my teams that were suffering from burnout, people that I was directly working with and people that I was mentoring and coaching. So I'm mentoring and coaching people suffering from burnout, and here I am having the same kind of feelings. And I'd been speaking to people about it and helping them to realize that this is the position that they're in and that something needs to change. And so I could see the signs, but I didn't want to, let's say, announce or declare that this is actually how I was feeling. And some of you might already be laughing at me saying, a couple of weeks. That must have been so terrible, having burnout for a couple of weeks. I don't even know if I can call it that, but it was the most down that I felt in a very long time. So what was I going to do about it? I'm a very pragmatic person. Usually I'm quite positive and upbeat, although a bit pragmatic. My wife would say I'm focused on the practicalities of things. So what was I going to do about it? My first plan of action was a rock solid one. I'm going to ignore it. It works, right? That's the denial phase. So I said, no, if I ignore it, it's going to go away after a bit of time. Because I've had the kind of feelings before, it's going to go away. At some point, it's going to get better. Yeah? Then it didn't get better. Okay, on to step 2. Now we've got to do something. The next step was self-help. I can pull myself up by my bootstraps. Have you ever heard that expression? Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps? Who has ever tried pulling themselves up by their bootstraps? Have you ever tried successfully? Have you lifted yourself off the ground, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps? It's not a very easy thing to do. And in this case, it was the same. I wasn't getting much success. And I knew what all the tricks were, what I needed to do. Get out of the house more often, have a walk, more prayer time, more reflection time, see what gives you energy, make sure to do those things, get your life, your personal balances, everything correct. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a mind person. A mind person. Ooh. Have I said that I'm tired? And that wasn't working either. And I finally confided in Karin, my wife. She saw, obviously she knew that things weren't going too well. And she has a way of being very direct and to the point. She was like, well, have you told anyone at work that you feel this way? I'm like, of course I have not told anyone at work that I'm feeling this way. That is counterproductive. That is not going to help. But that was actually a very helpful thing, and it got me thinking, okay, but what am I going to do to get myself out of this? Now, in that time, we were busy here. I was busy in the worship team, and one of the exercises that we were doing was a thankfulness exercise, a thankfulness prayer, where for 10 minutes straight, you pray in thanksgiving to God. Only thanksgiving. Nothing else. Nothing else. No asking for help. No asking, please guide me in this. No asking, please protect. No, please give me. Please make this. Please do that. Thank you. Thank you. And try not to repeat yourself. The first 2 minutes go really well. The third minute becomes a little bit more difficult. Then you start going into deeper levels and you realize, whoa, there is so much to be thankful for. And this was a wonderful exercise. And we did it a couple of times. And to be honest, it was very eye-opening for me, but it also made me feel extremely guilty. Because here I could see, laid bare, all the things I could be thankful for. I had so much to be thankful for, and we were just singing it. I came in here this morning, my voice is a little bit breaking down, and I came in with the full intention not to sing too fully in the worship, so that my voice can still speak afterwards, and then the worship team just destroyed that idea for me. So I sang along in full gusto, and we were singing about this just now. But I was feeling so guilty for having so many things to be thankful for, and here I am struggling with this. So I knew I have to go to God with this, but I felt like God has already given me so much. Now I want to ask him to also do my part, kind of. You get what I'm saying? Like, God, you have been so good to me. You've done everything for me. You laid down your life on the cross. I've thanked you for that. You've given me a wonderful family. I've thanked you for that. You've given me a wonderful life and opportunities. I thank you for that. You have done so much for me. You have been so good to me. But Lord, I'm not feeling great at the moment. Can you just do a little bit more? That didn't feel too good. The Bible verses you don't want to read at that point is something like Job. That becomes kind of depressing. Ecclesiastes, the first couple of verses, also not great. There's nothing new in this world. Nothing can bring you joy and pleasure. Everything is for nothing. Oh wow. Lord, I thought if I just read the Bible, then it's going to get better, but no. So here I was. I was in this dark kind of place, feeling very unmotivated, thinking, okay, but what do I have to do? What do I have to do to get out of this? And there's a point to this. I hope that some of you haven't felt this before. But I'm quite sure that there are quite a couple of you that have felt this before at some point in your life. As I said, we are not robots. We go through phases. So there is a point to why I'm trying to really put myself out there and say, this is how I felt. This is how down I felt. And I said, yeah, again, some people will laugh and say, oh, only a couple of weeks, oh, that's terrible. I've had it for years. And there are people that suffer from chronic depression and feelings of hopelessness. And I cannot imagine how that should feel. And I don't want to pretend like I've got answers for all of that. So I also want to say that as a kind of caveat to this conversation, that I'm not going to be giving a one-hit wonder solution. This isn't this fixes everything. Here's the hammer, there's the nail, just hit it and it's done. Solution, it's solved, it's fixed. Because to be honest, that's not where I am. I'm feeling a lot better than what I did a couple of weeks ago, but I still know that there are some things that need to be sorted out. So why am I sharing all of this? What did I realize in this whole process? So I said this isn't the first time that I felt this way. I've gone through periods where things haven't been great. We had a business that failed. That's not a great feeling, and you go through weeks and months of feeling like a failure. That's not great. When someone is very sick, someone that you love, and you're praying for them and hoping that things are going to get better, you can also feel very, very depressed and think like, what is the point of all of this, right? So I've gone through those phases in life, and I was trying to think back on those. What made those phases different? When or how did I get myself out of it? How did Jesus get me out of those phases? And with a bit of a shock, I realized, yes, it was Jesus. Yes, in part he was there. And he helped me through it in ways that I might not even know how he managed it. But what I realized was, in my journey in deepening my trust and my faith in Jesus, there were things in my life, coping mechanisms that I had to help me cope in life, to help me cope in dark times and times when I didn't feel great. The main one for me was pornography. I started when I was 10 years old. I was, let's say, heavily addicted. And in my years of maturing into adulthood, that became my coping mechanism. In this period where you're supposed to learn how to let's say, handle different situations and different upsets relationally with people, the answer for me was usually in pornography, because there I was safe. I could shut myself off from the world, and I didn't have to be disappointed by girlfriends, partners, or relationships not working out, right? And I didn't realize this until a long time later, that was actually the role that it played. That was the thing that was giving me balance, strangely. That was a large thing in my life that would numb my feelings. And I say this honestly, it was an addiction because it numbed me. And I hated the feeling after it, but then I would crave it again because I knew it would just completely tone down all my emotions, both those of love and joy and those of sorrow and sadness. And it wasn't only pornography. Later in life, it was alcohol as well. Not massive amounts. I was never a very big drinker, but it wasn't strange to, if you had a really tough week, a bad week, just drink that bit too much because it's going to make you feel better, right? And it's strange that alcohol is also the thing that we use if you want to celebrate. I want to feel even more happy, then I'm going to get even more alcohol. It's going to be even more bitter until the next morning, then it's not so much. But now I realized I'm in this position, and in my journey in deepening my relationship with God and being more dependent on Him, I have stripped down lots of those things. And with this, I'm not saying here, I am so good, I am so perfect, I have no issues. Obviously I do. But I realized that these were things that I was so dependent on. These were things that I didn't even notice were filling my void. And it kept everything in balance. It was the mathematical equation of two negatives making a positive. I was feeling down, And by using these mechanisms, these things, and it didn't only stop at alcohol or pornography. It was anything. It was binge eating, binge watching, TV series, whatever. It doesn't have to be terribly sinful to still be just a crutch. So here I was in this position, feeling very down, very low, and the temptations were coming back. Temptations that I haven't experienced so strongly for a while were coming back. And it triggered a thought in me because I already knew this is feeling way more spiritual than just a mental thing. This isn't just a phase. This isn't just because it's autumn and it's a little bit chilly. Although that doesn't help. And then I read this verse, Matthew 11, verse 28 to 30. And if you've ever been in a burnout or a depressive situation, and you go onto your Bible app and you ask for plans related to burnout, and there are lots related to burnout, this is the verse that usually comes up first. This one right here. And it didn't help me at first. It says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And when I read this, I didn't have the light feeling. I prayed about it and I didn't have the light feeling. It wasn't changing. But I had this feeling that there was a hole, there was a void. So what I started praying for was enlightenment. And I started praying for, Jesus, help me make sense of this. I started speaking to some people about it and saying, this is how I'm actually feeling. Close friends and companions. I was saying, this is actually how I'm feeling. Because I knew if I'm going to keep it quiet, if I'm going to keep it inside of myself, then I'm going to turn to other ways to try and feel better again. I'm going to try and fill the void with something else. Then I came back to this verse, and I actually read it with a different emphasis. Now, if you put a different emphasis on something, you can make the meaning change completely. So I'm not saying this is how it was written and the intention. But when I one day, so I was praying for enlightenment, and I was reading this verse often. It came up quite often. And one day, the emphasis just fell differently. And in the last part, it said, "For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." And what I realized then is there's someone else trying to sell us a yoke and a burden as well. It's not just Jesus. There's the world. There is the devil. There is Satan. There is sin and sinfulness in this world trying to also get you to carry a yoke and a burden. That burden is not light, and it is not easy. So I was always thinking about it as there's either Jesus who's going to carry it for me, or there's nothing. But then I realized it's not actually just nothing. The world has been telling us that there are different ways to cope with these feelings that we're having. There are so many ways that you can just feel better. And I was debating for a short moment if we're going to do raising hands again. Then I thought, no, this isn't a great point to ask for people to raise their hands. And I really want to say this not from a point of judgment. And it's not one saying that what you're doing is wrong. But I realized what I want to share with you today isn't a solution. It's not a quick fix. It's not a this is going to make it easier. And maybe you're in a great place right now, but in a couple of weeks or months, you might be in a situation where you're feeling very down. Then I'd like you to think back on what we discussed today. Not from a point of judgment. Not one saying you can't enjoy life. You can't watch TV series. You can't name it. Name the great thing that you can do to feel better. But is it coming from a place of faith and trust in Jesus first. Knowing that Jesus has given you this thing, this mechanism to help you cope in life, to help you cope here on earth. So that's what I was struggling with. I realized I've got this void feeling in me at the moment. And a void, if you know, it wants to be filled with something. There's tension. Where there is a void, it wants to be filled. If you suck all the air out of this room, the pressure on the outsides of the building are going to be immense. It wants to be filled by something. It wants to be filled, right? So if you've got this vacuum feeling inside of you, there are things pressing in from the outside that want to force their way in. So either you decide what you're going to fill it up with, or it's going to fill up with whatever comes first, whatever is closest. That scared me. I didn't want to go back to a life where I was dependent on pornography, on alcohol, on substances, on anything else other than Jesus. And I started changing my prayers, and I was praying, Lord, I want you to fill me. I don't know how yet. I don't know in what way, but I want you to fill me. And then I was reading Ecclesiastes again. There's nothing new under the sun, nothing from drinking and all the wisdom in the world and everything. It's not going to give you joy. All the toil and the work that you do is not going to give you joy in and of itself. But you can enjoy the great work that you do if you know who you're doing it for, if you understand who you're doing it for. What is filling your void? What is filling your void this morning? What is filling your void? What is in that place where you come home from a difficult day at work, a difficult day with your kids? You just had a holiday. It was supposed to be wonderful. Kids were screaming the whole time. Kids were unhappy. And you're in this place like, how am I going to change this? What's going to happen? What is that thing that you go to? And where does that thing come from? Have you decided for that thing? Have you actively thought about it? Or was it just pattern or you know, this is the way. This is the usual, this is how I do things. This is how I was brought up. And a lot of it is that way. This is how my parents raised me. So this is how I learned to de-stress. This is how I learned to cope with difficult things. We didn't speak about emotions in my family, so it was you turn inside. But what if your inside is completely empty and you've got nothing? Yeah, let's pull the bootstraps a little bit more. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. What is in those dark corners? And I want to give you a guideline in this. This before. Thanks, Peter. I was just too fast. I might have mentioned this before, but it's like food. Anything that you consume, they say you are what you eat. Yeah. So it's a food metaphor. I do love food. Oh, it was nice in Greece, the food as well. You are what you eat. Will you knowingly eat or drink poison? Will you, knowing that something is really, really, really bad for you, put it into your body? We want to say no, but still sometimes there are things that we know, this is not good for me, but I'm going to do it anyway. But there are poisons that we know they're really bad. It's going to be bad for my health. It's going to be bad for my situation. I shouldn't be eating this. There's poison, okay? Are you going to give your kids poison? For sure you're not going to give your kids poison. So is God going to give us poison? He's not going to give us poison. The second one is fast food. Is fast food poison? No. Don is already shaking his head because he's feeling very convicted at this point. No, joking. Fast food is not poison. Is it good in the long term? Is it good in the long run? No. So once in a while, yeah, it's not too bad, but it's not a good sustaining meal, right? And then there's the third one, which is healthy, the healthy option. And I'm not going to say what the healthy options are because there are so many different views on this in terms of food, and I don't want to start that discussion. My parents are on the carnivore diet at this moment, and yeah, I'm still struggling with this one. Yeah, Mom and Dad, sorry if you're listening to this on the podcast. I do love and respect your choices, but I do like bread, and I'm going to keep on eating it. So there is poison, there is fast food, and there is the healthy option. Now we've got that in our lives as well. Poison is sin. Poison is sinful things that do not bring honor to God at all. In fact, they try to take honor away from God. They try and steal honor from God. And the devil is great in using these things. He's great at making it appear as this is actually a quick fix. This is actually good. This is actually good for you, you know? Pornography, it's not that bad. It's actually good because it means that men and women, but especially men, can just let go of all these frustrations and inner feelings that they have and not take that into relationships with other people. So pornography is actually good, right? Trying to sell poison as something that's wonderful. And the thing is, how you can identify a lot of this is the devil takes things that God and Jesus gave us, and it's twisted in sin to appear like a loving, helpful thing, but it's not. The cost is really high. There's all these different examples that we have of this, of sin being used to put a barrier between us and God. And while that barrier is there, it's really difficult to get recharged by Jesus. It's really difficult to take up his yoke if you've got sin standing between you and him. That doesn't mean that you're not loved, that you're not saved. But it means you've got to get rid of that thing. You've got to take that to Jesus and say, Jesus, I want to lay this at your feet, and I don't want this to be my coping mechanism. Alcohol, which was my other example, is that a poison? Yeah, technically, it probably is a poison. Long-term benefits aren't great. Is it bad in and of itself? No, it's not. It's just like a gun isn't bad in and of itself. It's what it's being used for. Money isn't bad in and of itself. It's the love of it that becomes a problem, right? So alcohol in this sense is the same. I'm not going to go through all of the examples like this, but there are things that you think, okay, is it good, is it bad? And it depends on how you use it. It depends on how you see it. So for that, I like to do a test. Can I go without it for this amount of time? Because you always say, I'm not addicted, I can stop any time that I want. I said that so many times. It's when you actually start doing it. And then usually the argument is something that goes along the lines of, I can stop any time I want, so I don't need to stop, first of all. And because I've got it under control, so why do I need to stop? And God gave me this to enjoy as well. What is wrong with a nice glass of wine? There's nothing wrong with a nice glass of wine, and that is absolutely correct. So if you are so sure of yourself and so sure that it is not a problem, can you leave it for a month? Can you go without it for a month? Can you go without it for 2 months, 3 months, a year? That's the things that are half good, half bad. It depends on how you use them. And then there are the good things. I want to say salads. It's not my favorite thing. Salad or, the healthy food. Time spent reflecting with Jesus. Time spent in prayer, time spent in worship, time spent preaching the gospel, telling people about Jesus, reading things that enrich your life. So there are all these different examples. So you have to decide, what is it for me? What is this thing for me? And in that part, I can't help you at all. And other people probably can't help you either. But the Holy Spirit can. I want to read for you from 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9 to 10, where Paul was writing. He was afflicted at this point. So Paul had lots of terrible times. It's well known. Shipwrecks, beatings, half beaten to death. He got the 39 lashes, which is one short of corporal punishment of the death penalty, several times. So he had all the right in the world to say, I'm feeling a little bit down at the moment. I'm feeling a little bit uninspired. But he shares this in 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9. But he said to me, this is Jesus speaking to Paul, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. This turned a page for me. Where previously, when I had this feeling of feeling down, feeling dispirited, feeling worthless, and then all these other voices start joining in as well. Like, yeah, of course, you should feel worthless. Look at the quality of the work that you're doing. It's terrible. Look at how you handled that. That was so bad. Look at how bad you are doing the following things. And all of these things start bubbling up. What I used to do then was turn into myself, turn into my sinful desires and coping mechanisms, which kind of kept everything in balance, but in a terrible balance. I thought it was helping me to cope. Maybe I wasn't thinking about it that way, but it was helping me cope. And I became dependent on it. But what I realized in this period, in this feeling of hopelessness and this void, all of a sudden I saw this void as my weakness. I saw the void as an opportunity. Jesus was actually taking this void that I was feeling, this emptiness, this thing that wanted to be filled, and saying, I want to come and fill this for you. I want to fill this for you. Do you want me to fill it for you? And I had to stand still and really think about, how am I going to fill it with Jesus? What is the good food that I'm going to be putting in? I already knew all the automatic transitions in my brain, what it was trying to do, what it thought would be helpful, what it thought would protect it and make me survive the feeling. But this was actually an opportunity. And I'm not saying the void, the feeling of darkness was coming from Jesus, but he was using it. He was saying, I can do something wonderful from this. So right now, I'm not in a place of feeling 100% energized. I know there's more, and I know Jesus wants to give me more. But I've changed my stance to say, while this void is there, I've got the opportunity to fill it with beautiful, beautiful things from the Holy Spirit, which can enrich my life, not detract from it. After Mother Teresa passed away, her journal, her biography, her self-written biography was published. And in it, it was made known that she had been struggling for more than 10 years with the feeling not hearing God at all. Mother Teresa, proclaimed saint in the Catholic Church, saying, I didn't hear God's voice for 10 years. I was in my darkest period and I wasn't hearing God. I was thinking, here's a person who devoted their life to God and to his calling, helping other people, helping the poor and the orphaned. and she wasn't hearing his voice. And her answer to that was, she said her prayers came down to only saying, "Oh God. Oh God." She didn't even know what to ask for anymore. But she knew that what she was doing, the acts, what she was going through, and still continuing to serve and to help people, to uplift communities, to serve there where it's most needed. She knew that's what God called her for. She knew that's what He called her for.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's Motion Church podcast. We hope that today's message has encouraged and inspired you. Much of our content is free thanks to the people who support us financially. If you would like to contribute, go to motion.church. For more, visit our website and follow us on social media for the latest updates. Until next time,